Congresswoman, it's great to see you. Welcome back to Bloomberg. Of course, a member of the Armed Services Committee and small business for that matter. I note your status as a military veteran, a former naval officer, an intelligence officer who was also an advisor in the national security space. Now you represent a state that is very sensitive to the military community in New Hampshire. Do you believe that strikes against Iran are inevitable?
Well, thanks so much for having me. You know, as I listened to the president last night, it was really hard to square his statements with the way that he's conducting himself when it comes to Iran. We know that decisions about war and peace, these are the most consequential decisions that a person in public trust, at a position of public trust, could ever make. These are questions about American lives and about American taxpayer dollars. The president has not yet been clear about what his objectives are in Iran. What are our goals here? He said again last night that Iran's nuclear program has been obliterated. So it doesn't quite square up with what his objectives might be. You know, the president has not answered the question of what he would be prepared to do. And the reason that the Constitution entrusts Congress with the power to declare war and with important war-making powers is to be a check and to make sure that we get the answer right. That's exactly why we have the War Powers Resolution and why presidents rely on the check of Congress and the blessing of Congress before proceeding with these most consequential questions. And the final thing that he hasn't answered is what comes next. And look, the American people do not want to be in another forever war that's going to cost us in American lives and in taxpayer dollars. So these are basic questions that the president has not given clear answers to. And that's a huge problem.
Well, so when we consider the American lives, knowing that more Americans have been deployed to the region, the Financial Times had reporting today, citing an insider with the Iranian regime, suggesting that Iran, and this is a quote, would move toward escalation, targeting anything within reach from U.S. bases to the Strait of Hormuz and American warships in response if attacked. If you're on an American warship in that region right now, Congresswoman, are you prepared to withstand such an attack? Is it inevitable that if Iran were to choose that course of action in response, that we would see the loss of American life?
Look, we have the greatest and most powerful military in the history of the world. The United States military is extraordinary, extremely capable, unmatched right now. But the fact that we're reading in news reports, I'm a member of the Armed Services Committee, and I'm getting my best information from news articles about what the terms of the debate are here, what our objectives are, what our military planning looks like. And from news reports, I think there is understandable and grave concern about what the range of military options could look like. You know, this is why Congress is a check for the president. This is why the president should come to Congress. His power to wage war is not boundless, just like his power to wage trade wars and to tax the American people with tariffs is not boundless. And he was reminded of that last week. And it would be wise for him to come to the Congress and to have a real conversation about what our objectives here, because the truth is there is strong bipartisan support for the basic proposition that this Iranian regime, which is a brutal and determined enemy of the United States, should never get a nuclear weapon. There is strong bipartisan support for that proposition. But the way the president has chosen to go about this, and you saw it on full display in his State of the Union last night, which was the most divisive State of the Union in American history, in addition to being the longest. He's not building consensus on an issue that really needs buy-in from both branches of our government that are entrusted by the American people and our Constitution with war powers.
Well, so you're not being briefed on anything, Congresswoman, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, which tracks with everything we've heard from other members of the committee, even on both sides of the aisle. This is limited to the Gang of Eight, I guess, so far. What do you then make, with just based on your experience and what you're hearing in Washington, what do you make of the conventional wisdom that no nation, including this one, has ever assembled this much military might in one place without using it?
Well, I'm a student of history, and history's got to be our guide. But in my job now, I'm a congresswoman who is going to demand answers from a president who is refusing to recognize our role under this Constitution in questions of war and peace. And what I know for sure is that the American people do not want to go into another forever war. They don't want to put the lives of American service members and their taxpayer dollars on the line for a half-baked and frankly unclear strategy. And it doesn't have to be this way. And it's always the right time to do the right thing. And I hope the president will do that.
Well, Congresswoman, as we consider where American tax dollars are directed, there is not a dollar right now going to funding the Department of Homeland Security, which remains shut down now for a 12th day amid a dispute between your party and the White House over reforms to ICE. Do you see an end in sight here, Congresswoman? Because as you cite needing to see news articles to see what is happening with regard to Iran, I don't even think there are many news articles that can say definitively that there's been any progress made in these talks, or the talks even happening between your leadership and the administration?
Well, the first thing to say is there is no reason. We have agreement on funding all of the law-abiding components of the Department of Homeland Security. There is no reason, good reason, other than to cause unnecessary pain to hardworking federal public servants, for the Speaker to have hit the gavel and sent the House of Representatives home today without funding TSA, FEMA, and the vast majority of the Department of Homeland Security, which is not at issue here. The issue here is really about putting into place common sense guardrails, common sense checks on the powers that ICE and CBP have been exercising in communities across this country, unchecked powers. Yesterday, what happened in the state of New Hampshire, I think really should be a model for the rest of the country. We learned in press reports at the end of December that ICE had launched a nationwide campaign to commandeer industrial warehouses to warehouse human beings. And quickly and with one voice, Republicans and Democrats in every corner of our state spoke out against this to say, you cannot proceed with this kind of expensive, questionable, un-American plan without the consent and without the buy-in of local communities. And yesterday, we were victorious in this campaign. These are the kinds of common sense checks that the American people need and deserve from federal law enforcement. Public safety, at the end of the day, depends on public trust. And public trust is impossible when you have a federal law enforcement apparatus that is sending masked agents into our communities, shooting American citizens dead in broad daylight, defying the Fourth Amendment by breaking into Americans' homes without judicial warrants, surveying our communities in ways we've never seen before, except in other countries. I mean, what we are asking for are common sense guardrails that have the overwhelming support of the American people, and it is a decision that the Speaker and the President have made to inflict pain on public servants who shouldn't be working a day without a paycheck, at the same moment that members of Congress are getting paid without actually doing their jobs, which is why I will never accept a paycheck when any federal public servant is at risk of working without pay. It's just dead wrong. The incentives are backwards. And we've got a bipartisan bill to fix that. But in the meantime, there is a path. And this is the work of legislating. We've got to keep trying to build support to get on it. But it does very much exist. It's very clear to me.